One. Hello, hello, hello. This is the Hero Podcast 64 with your host, Ryan Ghafoerkhan from the Netherlands, and of course, the real Pete Kirkwood from New Zealand. Pete, what's up?
Well, today, Ryan, I think we should talk about the internal compass of the hero. And the internal compass can sort of be described like, in layman's terms, as like the mindset or the mind of the hero. You know, how a hero thinks, what kind of thoughts and patterns and techniques and habits roll through their mind on a regular basis that help them be a hero. It's like I've seen the quote many times, and I can't remember who it's from, but I've seen it in martial art dojos all over the place. First it's the thought, then it becomes the spoken word, then the word becomes the action, then the action becomes the habit, then the habit becomes the character. So it starts right at the beginning, and then it becomes who you are eventually. And I think that when it comes to that internal world of the hero, like we've already touched on those Stoic principles, you've got to be real strong on your vision of justice, courage, self-discipline, temperance, and holding yourself accountability, that sort of stuff, and wisdom. That is core to operating independently and with a good moral compass. Like those things almost build your 4 points of your internal compass, so you're always aligned in the right direction as a hero. When you look at a hero's story from the outside, it's always really easy to see what the right thing to do is. But we all know when you're living your own life, it's way harder. You've got two people, they've got different stories. Who's the bad guy? You didn't get the benefit of seeing it in the movie where you got to watch the bad guy do the bad thing, so when the hero confronts them, you're ready to go. You've got to work it out in the moment. You've got to be the hero. And you've got to look to those inner principles, because you have to know what your skills are and you have to use them in the moment. So, for example, I brought up today the subject of breathing and just paying close attention to how people are breathing. Now, miscommunication is a serious issue, and it's one of my greatest skills that I take a lot of pride in, clearing up miscommunication. As a hero trainer and working with people, I do a lot of that stuff. And I noticed in the last couple of days, if someone's struggling to communicate and they're struggling to find the words, look to how they're breathing and solve that problem. And it was my internal world, it was my internal compass that led me to go, use your skill. Don't talk and try and get an answer and try and get an external solution. Internally, find the answer. And internally, I found that I already had the skill and I had the ability and the knowledge to look and to receive an answer by breathing, instead of having to constantly, use words. And sometimes, man, if you've ever been sick, the worst thing you want to hear is, are you feeling better? Are you feeling better? Are you feeling better? Are you feeling better? You don't want that reminder all the time. So if someone can understand your beingness, that having to ask you that awkward question, that's really powerful in that moment. And that's looking at what it is that makes up our skills and remembering to use our internal skills that we have instead of constantly looking to the world for an outside answer. I see you nodding. I see you following my drift there. When you're looking at situations and things, what internal parts of your world, what part of your internal hero's compass do you turn towards to help solve those external challenges and external problems in your own life or in the business world? Either way, right?
That's a good question. So first, let's start with the definition of what is a hero compass. In my opinion, the hero compass is basically the moral compass. What do I believe is right and wrong? Now, one, fundamentally, I believe we as people, assuming I'm mentally stable and healthy, not in a stressful situation, I know I can make the right moral choices. Let's say I know what's wrong and right. And of course, continuing on, there are different phases of the hero's journey, be it the call to action or, you know, slaying the dragon or an elf or situation, I need to be able to trust my own judgment. And that's where it starts. In a lot of ways, your internal world is one of the main things you'll have to learn to focus on. Because I do believe, let's say, if every hero's journey would take a year, every year I'm a new kind of hero because of my ambitions, my this and my that. And what I've noticed is even if I become stronger physically, if my internal world, and to that extent my internal compass, doesn't keep up, I will feel the consequences of it. Hence, I advocate tools like meditation, doing inner work, getting coaches like Pete, of course, to help along the process and to smooth and lube things out nicely. During your hero's journey, at least in my case, you'll have to face the facts like, even if I have the skills, it doesn't mean I have the skill level. And if I don't have the skills, I better get those skills. Like for instance, I know how to optimize a business, but I never built a business before. Hence, I decided to get a coach that knows how to build a good business. It's the same thing as saying, I know how to help with the marketing process from both the data perspective as well as the process perspective, but to actually set it up, oh, that's something way different. And it's you're in
Mm.
this very ironic situation where you have to be okay with starting from the white belt again. Do you see what I mean?
Yes. And I think that's an
Thoughts?
important part of a hero's compass because it's like when you look at those 4 points, there's your wisdom, being wise enough to know when you are unwise and you need to learn instead of to speak or to act. That's very on point. Sorry, carry on.
Just a second, something fell down. So what came up as well is one of the major skills that I'm still trying to learn and further polish is letting go and being okay with things. For instance, because of the way that I am, not that I have pushing abandonment issues, but once I've learned the skill, I like to stick with it and keep it as long as possible. Because I
Mm.
believe, I didn't waste time on it. And yet, every cycle, and you see this, it shows, not every skill will be useful in every situation, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, I know how to dance salsa, but salsa will not get me the sale, let's say. I mean, it would be cool, but every skill has a context.
Mhm.
And every year, let's say, this whole year has been primarily focusing in on more the business aspect of things. Saying, yes, Ryan is not only a business owner, but he's a successful risk taker. I never associated myself with that until I had no other option.
Ah, yes.
And
And I think you bring an important point there where it's how you organize your internal world and how you keep that compass aligned on the right things. Let's carry on.
so one of the things that came up to me in me was, the things that you said about the martial arts and the thoughts. I like to advocate before the thought, who and what do you identify with? I mean, the Ryan of a year ago has a different identity compared to the Ryan in the here and now. And you see it in a lot of shows as well, like how you have this, let's say in the beginning of the hero's journey, where you have this young hero, maybe a toddler, seeing his inspiration, not realizing how he has to grow in order to become, that person. It's like,
Yeah.
starting your bodybuilding journey and the body that you want to have is someone of, Frank Samir or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and but you don't realize what you have to go through before you're at that level. And it's very
Yeah.
similar in martial arts. You don't know what you have to go through, and you need to be willingly put yourself in those situations. And it's not just the simple training, and it's not just the meditation. What you'll learn is also politics, and learning how to deal with people, and knowing where you draw the lines in your own life when martial arts is inevitably collected with the rest of your life.
Mm.
and knowing, when to use it outside of, the JoJo or the mats or whatever. And it's this continuous evolution of the character. You see what I'm going for? The character of who you think you are that dictates your thoughts, your habits, and eventually your outcome, your thought speed.
Yeah, exactly. It is that internal compass that makes up a hero. We all have one, and it's about aligning it. It's about aligning it in a way that it's working on code, and I think that you mentioned very powerful there where you said you need to use extra things, tools, and techniques. For example, it's really easy to see physical results. The difference between somebody who works out at home and somebody who goes to the gym, who they can have the same level of experience, expertise, all of that kind of stuff, but the person going to the gym has access to different exercises using those machines, and they can get a better result because they have more tools available. So there's a case for going to a gym. I've been noted to say, there's a reason to not go to a gym, and there are reasons to not go to one as well. That requires a certain level of commitment and the door's got to be open, this current stage of the world, yada yada. But the thing that really stands out for me is you look at a guy like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and people forget that it's the mind behind that body. That body didn't come around without the mind that got there in the first place. And techniques like meditation, massively, massively important. And I think also working with a coach, because it's when I look at how much time I spent building parts of my mind, my character, my personality, that were a huge fucking waste of time and would have been completely saved if I had have spoken to somebody who had their shit together. And I tell you, it wasn't the bro. It wasn't one of my mates. And often when it came to business, my father was right. However, a lot of his stuff is outdated because he had such fantastic success previously in life, whereas now he just specifically troubleshoots specific problems. He doesn't run big social media game or anything like that. So it's that hero, like, for example, he is an absolute hero when you put him in a sales floor and an environment and what he'll create. In a digital space, that's not his skill set. And it's that compass about knowing where you should be and where you should go and what you should do. I think one of the biggest things for me has been looking at it from that perspective of how will it be viewed outside of myself? I care about it, but I don't, like, if I'm the hero and I'm doing this for me, I'm not really a hero. I need to be doing it for more than me. It needs to be about more than just what I care about. And I think a lot of people, they forget to think, if I wasn't involved in this, what would I think of it looking from the outside in on myself? Like, of course, I think it's the right thing because I'm going to get what I want, right? Okay. I'm going to slay the dragon and save the kingdom and be famous. That's what I want. I want that recognition and that renown. I'm the hero. I want to do the right thing. But when I get there and the dragon turns out to be a surprisingly intelligent creature and we have a discussion and I realize that killing him is an act of evil, well, what I want to be the savior of the kingdom, all of a sudden, that's not so important as doing the right thing, and that's not killing a fantastical, mythical, sentient beast. Maybe that I need to learn in that moment that my previous idea I have of being a hero needs a bit of reconstruction, and instead I need to broker peace between the dragon and the kingdom and usher in a new era where people understand that dragons are real people too. I don't know, but it's about keeping the flexibility internally about your character and your identity and your ego, and that we get so wrapped up in, I'm Pete and Pete is this guy who does this thing, you're Ryan and you're Ryan who does that thing, and so many other people, like everyone listening, you have an identity and people look at you and they think you're that thing. They think you are that guy who's a mechanic. They think you are that girl who works in beauty. They think you are that kid. They think you are that idiot. Maybe it doesn't matter what you say, they think you're an idiot. Maybe it doesn't matter what you say, they think you're a genius. You've got an identity. And we get attached to it instead of remembering to focus on that compass that says what is the right thing. And I think that is what distinguishes heroes significantly from your average person, is they don't get caught up in their own story and their own bullshit about being a hero. I know that getting over my own ego was something I really, really struggled to do. The ability for me to talk to someone and massively help them and help their life, that's a lot of power. That's walking around like a wizard throwing fireballs. That's fantastic. But at the same time, if somebody wants to know how to build a house, all of a sudden I'm that same fireball wizard trying to swing a sword around. Well, yeah, I can pick a sword up and I can swing it, but I'm a wizard, man. I'm not a swordsman. It's not my thing. So there's that balance between knowing that when it comes to working with somebody in their internal mind and changing how they see themselves and their character in the world, yeah, I'm a wizard, I'm a genius, I'm a hero. I totally have to know that I am that good. But when it comes to other things in life, I have to know that I'm not. And I have to accept that who I am really, and not just who people think I am. Because over time that will change. Once upon a time, I couldn't just speak into people's minds and completely fix their lives. I haven't always been this guy. And there's a lot of people who haven't yet caught up with my identity in the now, and they think I'm still the guy who just helps people feel better by talking to them. Big difference. So the hero, like you said about letting go, right, he has to be able to let go, not just of his own ego, but other people's opinions and attachments and everything, and focus on that, what is the right thing to do in this scenario. Does that resonate with you, brother?
It does. It kind of reminded me of Pokemon in a lot of ways. Because the moment you start to realize that everything is a tool, be it your mind, your emotions, your own life is a tool towards a purpose, let's say. The more you start to realize, wait a minute, I can start to use this as resources. Now, you touch upon a lot of interesting things because I remember back in the day, this happened like 4, 5, 6 years ago, where it was the first time where I went to a dancing school, let's say, to learn a very specific dance style because it was hip back in the day and very trendy back in the day. And wanted to learn, wanted to help support a friend. And of course, that friend was connected with martial arts as well, but he was known to dance. Very respectable fighter, very good at what he does, but also he knows how to teach dancing. So I figured, why not go? Now, people don't know me as a dancer. So he was also surprised that I can move well. And at some point, other fighters decided to join, more specifically women. And we have a very brother sister relationship, and to see each other in normal clothing is already surprising. But to see each other dance really gives off a way different family. Oh, I didn't know you were so cool. That's interesting. And of course, me being the flirt that I am, other women started to see, oh, Friday has a way different vibe with these women. Why is that? And then they figured out, oh, so Ryan knows how to fight. And then you start to realize, looking, from let's say the current future to the past,
Mm-hmm.
I was subconsciously projecting, you know, this natural confidence because I knew how to fight. And do you see what I'm getting at? It's the
You were in line with your own identity in that moment.
exactly, because I'm not confident just because I know how to dance. I'm confident because I know I'm competent in what I know how to do. It's the same thing as saying I am so good at what I do. Like, of course, I'm gonna be confident. And even if it was shit at dancing, that's fine, bro. I'm confident in being confident. That's also a skill. And it has a lot to do with there are different kinds of heroes. And as you said, the wizard can still become a mystical swordsman should he choose to be that, or a mystical
Well said.
rogue or whatever. Because at some point, I can imagine that the wizard would go, maybe it's good to learn a bit of hand to hand combat. Maybe it's good to learn how to use a dagger. Because at some point, say in the worst case scenario, my magic is blocked, and the only way to aid the group or aid my situation or somehow survive this, learn how to use another power besides the magical power, that means I need to be prepared for a bad situation. And this goes with the Vince Kelvin saying of assume success but prepare for the worst. Assume the
See, now
sale. Yeah?
it's a very good point you make, and I think it's interesting how it comes down to where you want to go with your own character and what kind of life you want to create for yourself. Because specialization is key, but so is diversification. So, for example, this is a fantastic principle I come across lately. It's really hard to be the best in the world at something, at one thing. It's very hard to be the best in the world. There's a lot of competition. But it's not very hard to be in the top 25% of something. So if you can be in the top 25% of two things, all of a sudden that unique combination of those two skills makes you uniquely valuable. So for example, you think a lot of superheroes in traditional, that we know of, they have underlying superpowers which are never mentioned. So you think, for example, someone who is not omnisciently powerful, like, let's take the Flash, right? He moves really fast, but he also has a whole bunch of other powers that hold his body together at those amazing speeds. So there's actually multiple powers that are going on there. He actually has a very, very tough resilience and survivability power as well as super speed. Otherwise, he'd rip himself apart. And that is where that diversification comes from. If you can be in the top 25% of two skills or three skills, then you're going to really be able to create massive change and impact in the world and value in your space, whatever it is you decide to be doing, right? Maybe you're a fantastic public speaker, because that's one you compare with almost anything, and you're amazing at gardening. Boom, that's a thing. Or real estate. Boom, that's a thing. Or you're amazing at online marketing and gardening. Boom, that's a thing. It doesn't matter what it is, those two combinations, but there is something to be said for the archmage, because there is something to be said for specialization all the way. Watching the UFC fight on the weekend, I can't remember the guy's name, escapes me in a second, but he was a absolute physical specimen. He just towered over the world champion, and it was knockout 52 seconds into round two. And the world champion, he was not a chump. Like, you saw him going for it. And at one stage, you saw him connect. The punch hits the guy right in the face, and the guy just doesn't even care. And then 3 seconds later, off. Because to get that connection in his face, he had to put himself in danger from, and the guy who's so at the absolute peak specialized, he came from Africa. He went 7 times to try and get to the first world. He lived as a homeless person. He went through jail. He did everything to have that dream, and he built his training, his skills, his body all sharpened on one thing. That's his name, Francis Ngannou. Yes, it was so inspirational to watch that. And that is a physical example, but it's like the archmage. It's specializing in that skill set until you are so good, it's just impossible. And if you look at his background, where he started, he had no chance, even though he had the physical capability and all the rest of it, So it's really, really powerful. When you see that power where someone can choose to create their fate and they can choose that specialization or diversification. What do you think about that? What do you think about the process one?
That's an interesting one because it brings up the subject of dilemma. And that's a very key topic within the hero's journey. Because in this case, it's a skill thing. Let's say I want to be a fighter, but I still need to earn money somehow. So do I 100% focus on making sure I have the skills to do so, or do I make sure I get my money right first? And it's a choice. And it then becomes not only trusting the process, and of course, choosing what skills or what aspects I will first focus on. But I even want to advocate he who is decisive will be rewarded by the universe. Because imagine, imagine if you had a camera on you.
Mm.
The audience would like to see decisiveness. Like there's a clear dilemma. Like, fuck, what do I do? What do I do? What you do is you get your ass off of that chair and take action from the bigger picture. If you have, it is a stoic principle from the bigger picture, what makes sense? And what makes sense make dollars. So if it makes sense for you because you have some savings and you can have a small part-time job to keep by, because the only thing you would need is, let's say, a roof over your head, good food in your stomach, and a place to sleep, then good enough. And that's exactly what Francis did. He just went, bro, I have no money to pay you, but I just love fighting. How are we going to do this? Because, if you communicate to the world will inevitably communicate back. And at some point, the coach said, bro, you have such power. Let's put you into boxing. Let's put you into MMA. And they said, bro, you're a specimen. Forget about the money. Let's get you into fights and probably train you. And one of
Exactly.
his fights, he initially just wanted to be a boxer and he became an MMA champion. It's like, I did not expect this. I didn't even know, even wanted to be an MMA fighter. I just wanted to box. But because he was such a freak of nature, let's say, and he had the skills to back it up, especially now,
Yeah.
it now becomes, if you're going to specialize, need to have a foundation. And if you didn't meet that coach, you would not have it. Your thoughts, Pete.
That's really on point. And you bring up a very good point about the boxing and the MMA. Because if we look closer, even though Francis looks like it's complete specialization in one area, it's not. It's across a multiple range of physical disciplines. So he actually has got a lot of skill level in different areas. It's not just the striking, it's also the close quarters. And you think about how that works because you have to have that diversification, a couple of skills. The archmage, if you're only good at fireballs and you come across something that's immune to fire, you're in trouble. So you need lightning and water as well. Let's get all the magic, not just too specialized. But the real key is the fact of, if you're going to specialize as an archmage, have a mate who's a warrior who can stand there with a sword and a shield and keep you safe while you cast the spell. That actual networking, if you notice, heroes are never afraid to ask, to use, to request somebody's skills who have that moment. When you say the hero's in the moment and he has to make the choice, he has to get his ass off the chair. We all end up in that situation where we have to do something. It's do or die, it's D-Day, bills are due, whatever, you've got to move and you've got to take action. Well, if you don't know if it's left and you don't know if it's right, be fucking smart and ask somebody who does. Not someone who's convenient, not someone who's next to you, not someone who's around. Ask somebody who you go, you know what? They would know the answer right now. And they would know. They wouldn't be like, I think. They would be like, bang. Ask that person. Because I will still call my father for advice about things in business, which I know that he knows. Even though a lot of the time I'm thinking, I don't want necessarily social media advice, but I'm not afraid to reach out for something. And I think that really is one of the key facts of the hero is they're just not afraid to even look like a fool. They're not afraid to ask for help. They're not afraid to get a coach or a mentor. They're not afraid to charge into battle. They're not afraid to do the right thing. They're not afraid to even forsake the reward. And it comes down to simple things like just not being afraid to do the right thing, and regardless of your ego or whatever happens. And all of a sudden, again, that is courage, self-discipline, justice, and wisdom. It keeps bringing it back around. And I think that the more episodes we go through and the more people sort of get a hold of this power and this technology, mental power, it's going to really improve their lives. So fantastic, Ryan. I've really loved today's episode. We really got into the mind. Thank you very much for going back and forth, man. It's been great.
Yeah, fantastic. Glad you liked it. So, on the ending note, seeing how we have like 30 seconds left before the 30-minute mark, um, things to take away are definitely, ask for help if you need it. From the bigger perspective, I would definitely recommend if you have a specialization, either make sure you have a good foundation to back it up or to get a network or a team, or let's say a hero's council or hero's team to help you along the way. It doesn't have to be friends, it doesn't have to be coaches. It's in your power to decide what you can do. But
It is.
the best action you could have taken was yesterday. The action you should be taking is now. Any ending thoughts, Pete?
I think that really is the one. Is if being a hero inspires you, if you feel that inspiration within you and that energy within you, now do something. Open a book, book a call with me to talk about heroism or your business with Ryan, or reach out to a mentor of yours, or just take some action right now and do something. Even if it's just the next episode of this podcast, I don't care. Whatever it is, take action that inspires you and feeds that positive energy and feeds that inspiration inside of you, because it's always there and you can always feed it and you can always grow stronger.
Fantastic,
That's it.
fantastic, fantastic. Um, Before we end the call, let's talk about your business, of course, Pete. What are you about? How do you help your clients?
With a lot of the stuff we've gone over today, it comes down to having a personal discussion with someone about their individual characteristics, history, traits, skills, all of that kind of stuff, to break it down and really look deeper than just what's available, to give them a reflection of themselves that they can't see because they can never look at themselves from the outside. And that often gives them a lot of certainty, answers a lot of questions, and rapidly fast tracks their growth in whatever area they're pursuing and trying to grow in at that current time. That's the feedback I've been getting. People are loving it.
Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Well, in my case, I pretty much help businesses create better business flow, the business happy flow, so that it can get better revenue, happier clients, and even happier employees. Through the idea
Absolutely
of
help me.
leaderships, exactly, leadership, business models, better processes, removing constraints, and of course, the proof is in the pudding, the proof is in the data, the proof is in the indicators, KPIs, management dashboards, you name it. So should you want to have a kingmaker, a hero creator, the real Pete Kirkwood is your guy. If you have a business and are a business owner and you really are frustrated with the whole business flow aspect, feel free to contact me. This has been the Hero Podcast 64 with your host, the real Pete Kirkwood and Ryan G. from Netherlands. It's been a pleasure, Pete. See you next time. Good night.